Croeso friends, welcome back. I'm Courtney and this is Opus Elenae. Today I am going to be jumping onto a fun bandwagon and also making a much needed item of clothing, thus killing the proverbial two birds with one stone. V from Snappy Dragon issued a challenge to the costume community to create a set of sleepwear from one's chosen period of history, so that during ye old year of the plague, we may all lounge about the house in both comfort and style. Never one to shy away from a dare, I set about researching nightclothes in the high Middle Ages. You may remember my preferred period is the 1380s, and I came up completely empty. It turns out that when people in the medieval period were in bed, they were either fully clothed, visiting with friends, convalescing from illness or birth, or almost totally naked, sleeping, giving birth, doing things that lead some months later to birth. According to Rosalie Gilbert, an amazing medieval historian whose blog I will link to below, folks of all genders would wear something on their head such as a cap or coif to keep the body from losing too much heat and becoming ill. This channel not being that kind of content creation, although no shade to adult content creators, in this house we respect all kinds of work. I did have a bit of a think about what kind of compromise I could come to for the purposes of this video. When my partner and I go to camping events, I will frequently wake up and, whilst clad only in my shift, go make a pot of tea to start the day. Shocking, I know. In my perusal of various manuscripts, I did find a scant few depictions of women in white garments which looked suspiciously like smocks, and, well, I needed a new one of those anyway. So friends, grab your cuppa. Today I am drinking a Zero Fail, a new release from Tabletop Teas that tastes like ineffable cookies. You can find both this tea and its partner Crowley over at tabletopteas.com, and obviously I'll put a link in the description below. And now friends, let's get into it. The first thing I'll need to do is make a cutting diagram. Since smocks are rectangular construction, I don't use a pre-made pattern but draw out a diagram based on the individual's measurements, in this case, mine. I'm drawing it out on tiny grid paper, 1 grid to 1 inch. This lets me figure out the best configuration for all the pieces. Once the cutting diagram is finished, it's time to measure out the length of linen I'll need to create the smock. I usually add a couple of inches just in case. Once that's done, it's over to the ironing board to press the fabric nice and flat. The fabric, I'm using bleached 100% linen, is nice and pressed, and it's time to start cutting. Since my floor is the only place big enough to lay out 60-inch wide fabric, it will have to do. I'll reference my diagram and mark off cutting lines with the help of tailor's chalk and various rulers. With the shoulder seams sewn, I can measure the dimensions of the neckline, mark them, and cut the neck hole. On a non-underwear garment, such as a tunic or dress, I would finish the raw edges with a facing for stability, but to reduce bulk at the neckline, I'll be finishing this collar with a rolled hem instead. After I cut the neckline, I'll give the nascent smock a quick try on just to make sure that the neckline sits where I want, or will once the hem is rolled, and that the neckline isn't wide enough to let it fall down my shoulders. Before I do the rolled hem, I will need to fell the shoulder seams so they are nice and neat. The rolled hem is accomplished by folding over the tiniest bit of fabric I can manage and then folding it again, rolling it in my fingers to create a very small cylinder of fabric, which I then secure with a whip stitch. I plan to go more in depth on this process as well as other tiny hem techniques in my upcoming veil video, which I will link here once it has been published. Next up, securing the sleeves to the body. I'll use the cutting fold as a midpoint marker and secure the sleeve to the body at the shoulder seam. Once the sleeves are sewn on, it's time to add the underarm gussets. These are small squares of fabric sewn in a diamond at the underarm, with 2 sides attached to the sleeve and 2 to the body to allow ease of movement. Now it's time to attach the side gores to the body. Since this is a smock and doesn't need so much fullness at the hem, I'm not inserting front and back gores like I normally would in an outer garment. Since the gores are triangles, one long side is on the grain of the fabric, or the direction that the threads are running. This means that in a woven fabric, there is no stretch to this side of the gore. The other long side is cut on the bias or diagonal, and this allows that side of the gore to stretch. If I sew the grain line side to the body of the smock and the bias sides together, that bias seam will continue to stretch over the life of the garment, leading to droopy side gores. This is particularly apparent on shorter masculine tunics. However, if I flip the gores and sew them so the bias side is attached to the straight grain body, that will prevent the seams from stretching. The last thing to do before I fell the seams is to mark and cut the hem. I tried on the smock and, for it to fall to my ankles, I wanted this one to be a bit longer than the knee to calf length smocks I normally make. I needed to cut off about 2.5 inches. I'll fold in the gores to mark the edge and then make a smooth curve to the side seams. Oh, and apologies for the autofocus tantrum. I didn't realize it was on whilst I was filming. Next comes the tedious and time-consuming, yet strangely relaxing, task of felling all the seams. After that's finished, I will hem the shift with a simple double fold held in place with a whip stitch. And then we're done! And there we are, friends. One smock suitable for sleeping, lounging, and the quiet contemplation of dual papacy and the lasting impact of the Great Schism. Or, I guess, for wearing underneath actual clothing. Don't forget that while Costume College has been canceled this year, that doesn't mean that we have to miss out on all of the fun. Be sure to join me and the rest of the costume community in our collective presentation of CoCovid, an online historical costuming extravaganza running from Thursday, July 30th to Sunday, August 2nd. There will be video classes, workshops, panels, as well as Instagram fashion shows, social events, and even a Discord server dedicated to socializing. I will be posting a video class, that's right, you get an extra video from me in July, on the medieval capsule wardrobe, both masculine and feminine. I will also be participating in several of the Instagram hashtags and challenges, as well as at least one history of fashion video, and if I can swing it, a panel or two. For up-to-date information as it becomes available, please follow the Costume Guide on Instagram or RSVP to the CoCovid brought to you by Costube Facebook event. I will be sure to link both of those in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you're the kind of person who likes getting notifications when new videos go out, I do try my best to upload every other Friday, then click the bell to turn those on. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I will link to those as well as my Ko-fi page just in case you would like to make a donation to the Alms Purse and help keep Opus Elenae in materials. As always, friends, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Hwyl.